I begin this video, I'd like to say that I am not a furry. Just because I own a few fursuits, just because there's a few gigabytes of anthropomorphic animal porn on my computer, does not prove anything. I can't be a furry because I don't even go to the conventions. No matter how Shadow looks with his flowing mane and his deep, glistening eyes and his dark, mysterious voice and his tight, perfect. I apologize, I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, awkward boner aside, I feel like Shadow the Hedgehog falls into the unfortunate category of games quickly forgotten by the gaming masses, or even worse, turned into a laughingstock because of an admittedly large amount of design flaws overshadowing a lot of good ideas. We can all agree that Shadow the Hedgehog is a poorly designed train wreck of a game, and many consider it to be the final nail in the coffin for the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, but frankly, I disagree. That title goes to the Dreamcast. Anyway, perhaps if we take a chisel to this hitherto crusted-over pile of gaming excrement and hack away at it for a few days, we might just find a few gems in the center. Or maybe just a charming family of maggots. If I can turn everyone's attention to one of the best implemented design choices in Shadow the Hedgehog, let's take a look at the branching level progression. In each of Shadow the Hedgehog's levels, you're given the choice of 3 different missions. One good mission, which often involves helping annoyingly voiced woodland creatures to kill anything less cute than them. One neutral mission, which is, in classic Sonic the Hedgehog style, simply means finding whatever the game designers arbitrarily deem as the end of a course and jumping through the end course ring. And one evil mission, which usually has you play the role of a homicidal maniac bent on the utter destruction of anything that moves. To be perfectly honest, the branching pathways were well done and interesting. And just the fact that after you've beaten the game once, you've only seen a portion of what it has to offer encourages second, third, and fourth playthroughs and so on until everything's been uncovered. Not all the pathways take the same amount of effort, obviously, but this mirrors real life. I mean, becoming a teacher is going to be harder than becoming a porn star, but some people just don't want to exhibit their body like that. Anyway, it adds a subtle role-playing element. Ultimately, you're the one deciding Shadow's path, determining his destiny as either an unstoppable force for good or, well, kind of a douche. Often when you're playing through the game, faced with a tough decision as to which path to take, you'll find yourself asking, what would Shadow do? Or at least you would, if Shadow wasn't such a flavorless, hard-to-connect-with protagonist. Still, hardly any role-playing games are able to plant the idea of character choices into the minds of players so subtly. I mean, without even the player thinking they're playing a role-playing game. I doubt whenever you picked up Shadow the Hedgehog, you thought you were going to be playing an RPG. I bet you were more looking forward to the action platforming elements of it, and the lack of any friction. But Shadow the Hedgehog is able to successfully plant the idea of playstyle choices naturally and cleanly without shoving "your decisions matter" down your throat. This adds a level of depth and encourages personal preference when choosing which path to take. And it's really freaking cool. I mean, with these elements, the level progression feels immersive and interactive without being overbearingly focused on the whole moral choice system as far too many games try to implement. Shadow the Hedgehog allows you to play completely your way, and it doesn't even shove it down your throat. And that's impressive in this modern gaming era. Now, I have a feeling this next thing is going to be a little controversial, because guns always stir up controversy, no matter where they are. But I'll be the one to say that I thought the guns in Shadow the Hedgehog were cool. I realize that putting guns in a Sonic game is the equivalent of turning Princess Peach into a stripper, or giving Kirby angry eyebrows on his American box art, but speaking from a pure gameplay perspective, the guns were actually surprisingly well implemented. If you saw an enemy with a weapon you wanted, it didn't even have to be a gun. It could be a sword, or even a signpost. You could knock said enemy out and take it, and then use it to gun down more enemies. Grabbing weaponry was fluid, and flowed with the standard pace of gameplay, and using weapons on anything opposing you was satisfying and fun. Sure, the idea of a hedgehog running around with an AK-47 is a little silly, but hey, you were able to accept that a hedgehog could turn blue, go bipedal, and run at ridiculous speeds thanks to his red sneakers, so why can't you accept that a similar hedgehog is a member of the NRA? This same taking enemy weaponry mechanic has been used in other, more widely accepted as good games. The Wind Waker, for example, allowed you to pick up and wield giant enemy swords or staves if you were able to wrestle them out of the hands of your adversary for spectacular result. Shadow the Hedgehog employs this same mechanic, except with essentially every weapon in the game. It's a really good idea, even if the auto-targeting system is a little less than desirable sometimes.
Can you see all of me? Walk into my mystery. Step inside.
Finally, the thing Shadow the Hedgehog does best is that it's completely aware of its audience. As one of the only darker and edgier games to ever do this, Shadow the Hedgehog realizes that its gritty and mature atmosphere, and its serious storyline, and optional evil moral pathway, that's only going to appeal by the only demographic that's going to enjoy the game in the first place, 12-year-old kids. Kids, being the sociopathic little nutcases that they are, enjoy senseless violence and love the supposed dark and mature atmospheres modern gaming is currently binging on. However, thanks to a little institution known to many of us as good parents, not every little gremlin can get their hands on Little Billy and access fantasies for the School Bully 4, and are prevented from obtaining the many M-rated mindless gore fests that the gaming industry is more than ready to churn out en masse. However, the content contained within Shadow the Hedgehog is what these kids have wet dreams about without the parental concern. Shadow the Hedgehog dances about 10 feet away from the line of too far, teasing with the concept of emulating much more graphic games, but never getting too close to stir up any concern or controversy. After all, he comes from the same series as Sonic, that lovable little blue thing with the perpetual Olympus smirk glued to the side of his face. Kids may cream themselves, provided they've developed the physical capacity for that, every time Shadow utters the word damn, but parents will merely chuckle and pass it off for what it is, childish imitation of the behavior of elders, which can even be considered cute, if you consider a monkey playing Simon Says cute. While this attempt at being dark and edgy may come off as laughable to anyone above the recommended age range for Shadow the Hedgehog, that may just be because you're an adult trying to play a game clearly aimed at a much younger demographic. You have better ways to spend your time. Go, I don't know, complain that the writers of Dora the Explorer need to come up with more compelling plots.